Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the beach collab that has come back to North America. So, who doesn't like to wear swimsuits and go to the beach in September in like pouring rain and like close to freezing temperatures? Maybe Pad does, but regardless of all that, as a general rule of thumb, seasonal events tend to be on the underwhelming side. The reason for that is because these events like beach or like things like Christmas, Halloween, etc., they've been in existence for how many years? And many of the cards are still at the bottom rarity, are still present in the machine, and they also comprise the vast majority of the rolling pool. As a result, I tend to skip seasonals in terms of rolling, but at the same time, there are several new and powerful cards, and monster exchanging may possibly be in your best interest. And with that in mind, I want to take a look at all the 8 and 9 star cards who are monster exchangeable or whatnot, and then the 2 new 7 stars, just to give you an idea of what is in this event. But for the most part, I don't feel like it is worth rolling in because you're just going to get a lot of sadness. Like, yes, they do have weapon assist, but remember, if you're like myself and have played for a tremendously long period of time, you probably have a lot of the bottom rarity cards anyways, and now that they have weapon assist, maybe I'll actually utilize them a little bit, but the point of the matter is, I think it's not necessarily worth rolling in. So, let's take a look at all of the cards that are in the upper rarity. So the first card is Mariel, and Mariel is the new 9-star card, and she's obviously tremendously powerful. She attempts to bring Rainbow back into the spotlight, so to speak. So looking at her awakening, she can have pretty spicy super resists, because wherever super resist, she can either have 100% blind, jammer, or poison, or skill boost plus. Depending on your team needs, depending on what you need, it's quite flexible. Or an L if you're truly desperate, but I don't think that's probably going to be much of the issue. Looking at the other awakenings, she has 3 boost attribute 4 awakenings. And that basically means she receives 3.5 times personal damage whenever you match 4 or more colors. So obviously you're rainbow oriented. And with that 3 of those awakenings, you get 42 times personal damage approximately. And she has a monstrously large attack stat. So she's going to hit incredibly hard. And if it wasn't rainbow oriented, like, do you want the VDP Latent? Hard to say. Maybe you probably have something that can void damage void. So maybe you want the double damage cap, because she definitely can achieve that with relative ease, assuming you actually hit the requisite colors. Furthermore, it technically doesn't have a combo count requirement. You're probably going to be hitting high combos anyways, but it's just something a little different to think about. Looking at her active skill, I want you to pay attention to the fact that she has Skill Charge, because Skill Charge gives you essentially +1 personal haste for the owning card when you match all 5 colors. Again, she's a rainbow-oriented lead card, and if you do so, you basically half the cooldown. So instead of a 12-turn cooldown, it could be potentially ready in 6 turns, and that is important because her active skill gives you a board unlock and changes the board to all 5 elements plus hearts, so a full rainbow board of hearts, and then you get 3 turns of RCV buff, and 3 turns of an attack buff for dragon and attackers. Now, if you have 2 Mariels, either like dual leaders or 1 leader and a sub, or whatnot, like just find 2 Mariels somewhere in your team, you can, in theory, have 100% uptime on a 3 times attack buff and a 3 times RCV buff, which makes these multipliers at the bottom much more appealing overall, because while the health is still static, you have the big 75% damage reduction, so you got large amounts of effective health. You also have a huge attack multiplier, which becomes 3 times greater all the time, which is definitely on the plus side. Furthermore, she does not need to transform, so you're just good to go right away. You have to use dragon and attacker type cards, which can be possibly a little bit of a drawback. It might give you some restrictions of what you could bring on your team possibly, but again, you probably have, like, there's a lot of different cards that you can actually utilize. You get damage reduction when matching 4 or more colors, and then you get bonus combos when matching 4 or more colors. So basically, you just want to match rainbow stuff. So if you utilize 7x6 board in some way, shape, or form, activating all of this should be relatively trivial. And at the same time, Mariel doesn't actually have auto follow attack, which might be something of interest. The problem is, I feel like rainbow is just an awkward card overall. Like, it's just an awkward place overall, because monocolor is just so strong. We have these beautiful system transforming cards like Nautilus, Rosalind, Natsuru, etc. Like, they do so many wonderful stuff. They don't have to worry about certain colors. They dish out damage with relative ease. Everyone's hitting incredibly hard. It's just a bit of a problematic aspect overall, I feel. But with that being said, Mariel is obviously tremendously powerful. Whether or not she's worth monster exchanging for is kind of hard to say, because like, it is an expensive trade, and like I said, I don't really foresee rainbow teams really being that dominant overall. Monocolor is just superior overall, because unless it might take maybe like 6 months to a year, I feel, for rainbow to really catch up as more cards get these rainbow based damage awakenings, because they're technically more efficient than 7 combos, and well, not as efficient as 10 combos, but like, they can be more found more readily available, I'd say, because like having a double 10 combo card is still quite rare, but having possibly multiple cards of these Rainbow bonus awakenings might be something feasible. But point of the matter is, I feel like Rainbow just needs some sort of great system to keep them flowing and just have bigger multipliers. I feel overall, like, it's not like it's bad. I just feel like Rainbow is just never going to catch up to Monocolor, at least at this point, maybe in 6 months to a year. If we look at her weapon assists, they are nice overall. You get enhanced water orbs, enhanced hard orb, an L, useful stuff overall, a buff for attack and RCV. Again, it could be useful depending on the team you're running. You may not have those buffs. And her other weapon assist is 2 team healths, that L again, and then 2 enhanced water orbs. So these are nice awakenings, and the active skill tied to it is a little bit on the short side, but it creates a spinner or a roulette orb. And then you get 3 times bonus movement time and RCV, as well as unlocking all orbs. So with that 3 times orb movement time, let's say you had 10 seconds of movement time, which is a pretty normal amount. You now have 30 seconds with a spinner. You can abuse that spinner to get whatever pattern you want. So I feel like for mono water teams, this is not a bad option if you feel like spinners are going to be a big problem for yourself, because A, you overwrite them, and B, you get to actually abuse the spinner of all that copious amounts of movement time, and they actually have nice awakenings alongside of it. Again, it is a high rarity card that requires expensive trade fodder, so it might be difficult to justify. Beach Planner is a good card, but the problem is Blue Albert kind of came out at the same time, and Blue Albert is just, for the most part, a superior option because Beach Planner has a 9-turn cooldown. A 9-turn cooldown for a full cleric active skill is on the longer side. It does come with great benefits. It gives you +3 combos. It gives you 1 turn of damage absorb cancellation, so a Fujin style active skill for 1 turn. Depending on the dungeon you're playing through, maybe that 1 turn is actually sufficient, and it might end up making your team and your runs much smoother overall. But the problem is, it's a long cooldown, and you have other things that can do it faster. Blue Albert is, I think, a 6-turn cooldown by comparison, and he has much more personal damage, but he doesn't have VDP, unfortunately, but he has much more personal damage is the point. So, like, Beach Planner is not a bad card by any means, it's just that her timing is off. If she came a little bit sooner, I feel like it would have been a much more viable and valuable cleric to own, but for the most part, I feel like if you have an Albert and you manage to beat Mysterious Dimensions or whatever it's called and get his gem to make his blue form, it's going to be a much stronger cleric overall. So it's not to say that she's weak, it's just that it's competing with something that is superior, unfortunately, and she has a longer cooldown. If she had a shorter cooldown, it would probably be okay. For her leader skill, you need to have fire attribute to get the health multiplier, which is awkward because you're going to want to be blue fire. It's just a little awkward. Like, you get big amounts of auto follow-up attack, you have large amounts of damage reduction, like you have large amounts of effective health, but it's just going to be a bit more awkward to be team building overall. I feel it's still a strong sub. Like, if I did roll her for free, I'd obviously be tremendously happy, but I feel like it's not worth pursuing at this point in time just because we have other cleric options in Blue Albert. Of course, you don't have Albert. Maybe you could probably find a way to get him as well, because the current Super Godfest lets you monster change for him. Either way, let's take a look at Beach Varroa. So Beach Varroa used to be, probably still is in all honesty, a great farming leader, because all you need to do is match 9 or more connected water orbs for big amounts of damage, big combos. Problem is, you don't get the auto follow attack. There are a lot of other ways to farm stuff. Varroa only has damage with a VDP, which you probably need to do anyways. So it's not like she's bad, it's just nowhere near as strong as before, I feel, relatively speaking. You do have 2 dungeon boost awakenings, which could be meaningful because it's hard to find cards with 1, let alone 2 of those awakenings, so it might end up bolstering your drop rates to a meaningful level. Her active skill still floods the board of water and reduces your RCV, but like, I feel like she just feels a little outdated. Her weapon assist gives a dungeon boost. Again, dungeon boost is actually quite rare on weapon assists, or just rare in general, so if you're farming, nice to have. Rose makes life easier, of course, as well. And then if you look at her new weapon assist, it gives you bind immunity and a enhanced water combo. Basically match multiple water combos for more damage, and the active skill is going to give you changing wood and light to water, and then 6 turns of RCV and 6 times attack buff. Maybe you could leverage those buffs to carry yourself through a very short dungeon, but I feel like it's a bit of a situational weapon assist overall. I feel like Beach Varroa is just lacking. Mariel's only truly great one, I feel, at the 9-star rarity. For Beach Yog, regardless of the form you pursue, he has a co-op boost awakening. And if you don't play co-op, it's a completely dead awakening, which is unfortunate because 1/9 of your awakenings, or I guess 10 because Super Wings, so 10% of your awakenings are useless. that doesn't feel good overall. And then if you're playing in co-op, you don't get the Super Awakening either, except for 3-player co-op. I guess if you play 3-player, Beach Yog will become great overall. But for the most part, Beach Yog, I feel, is just also a little awkward. Like, his active skill is a board change for Water Hearts, recovering all health and clear all bind and awoken binds, or board unlock if I didn't say that. So it's got quite a few valuable aspects to it, but it's not a full cleric active skill because you don't clear unmatchable. It's got that long 13-turn cooldown. Remember, I knocked Planner for 9 turns. 13 turns is even worse. So it's just going to be difficult, I feel, to slot in overall. You could argue that 6 skill boost can be meaningful. He does have respectable personal damage. And if we look at their other form, they have less personal damage without VDPs. But like, it's just awkward of that one multiplayer bonus. Like, it just kind of kills the card overall, I feel, just because now we're at a point where everything can be min-maxed so much more easily that lacking an entire awakening doesn't feel good. And again, a long cooldown, which might be difficult. Maybe you could argue that farming stuff easily when you're above 80% health or more, you get more damage when you're above 80%, you get more RCV when you're less below 80%. Like, it does have a large attack multiplier. All you need to do is match 2 water combos. It's easy to play, but it's nothing special in this day and age, unfortunately. For Beach, Barbara, and Julie, their active skill was upgraded. It now gives you 2 turns of Attribute Absorb cancellation. So, 2 turns of Color Absorb Void. That is meaningful. The vast majority of dungeons have 2 turns of Color Absorb in some way, shape, or form. And depending on the form you wish to pursue, she can have more skill boost and passive damage with her base form. But if you go to her Evolved form, she keeps her large amount of killers, and she has that 10 combo in both forms. You lose out skill boost. You also lose out on a enhanced water combo, but you gain more killers, more coverage, and remember, the more coverage you have, the more likely they are to overlap, and then you start dealing meaningful amounts of damage with their high attack set. This 10 combo awakening obviously is powerful. So if the spawn in question has 2 typings that you are effective against, you get 9 times 5 is 45 times personal damage. Pretty great stuff overall. A 2-turn Color Absorb Void, which is meaningful in basically almost every single dungeon. You get 2 turns of enemy defense being broken to 0, which could be beneficial in certain situations. I know the Dragon Seed in Shura 2 is not as dangerous as it used to be, but 2 turns of breaking their defense is meaningful if you didn't play a leader of large amounts of auto follow attack. And then unlocking the board and creating the full board of fire and water. So you cancel the Color Absorb. You also get a board changer that's going to help probably guarantee you kill the respective spawn. Reasonably strong usage overall, I feel, as a sub. Like, good damage output if there's enough typings overlap. Still a reasonably strong card. And as a leader, they have thick multipliers if you don't care about damage reduction. Unfortunately, damage reduction is kind of the name of the game now because gravities are now starting to exceed 100%. So no matter how much health you have, you still die to those gravities. But I'd say it's still a strong leader. You get bonus combos for just matching fire, water. You also get bonus orb movement time. It's just an easy to play leader, and if you don't have to worry about damage reduction and gravities, it's going to be quite strong. Again, it is cheaper to monster exchange for, but at the same time, I don't really feel like it's necessarily worthwhile. The weapon assist gives the same active skill, which is nice, but a single TPA is kind of awkward. We have weapons with double TPA. It's just, one TPA is a little underwhelming, I feel, for a weapon assist overall nowadays. Like, you do get a skill boost, which is cool, but there's also not too many places to truly take advantage of TPA at this point in time. Beach Eschamali in her base form loses some enhanced water orbs for more VDP damage. Like, it's passive damage. Her active skill is a 10-turn cooldown with 10 turns of Water Skyfall, so in theory you can loop this continuously, but she doesn't bring anything else to the table. She doesn't have any resist, she doesn't have movement time in her awakening, she doesn't counter any mechanics, she just gives you constant Water Skyfall. So it's not like it's terrible, but at the same time it's just not meaningful. And then if you look at her leader skill, it's like they forgot to do things with it. That's from I don't know how many years ago. Her more evolved form gets rid of the VDPs and more enhanced water combos. I think that's a drawback overall. It would be nice to have some personal damage, and it just doesn't fit anywhere at this point in time. The multipliers look nice, but again, you have to be a god or machine type, so a little restrictive there, and you need to match 5 or more connected orbs. Again, you're blobbing, you don't get bonus combos, they don't have personal damage. It's just not something that's going to pan out at this point in time. But then we come to Beach Fujin, who's actually a pretty meaningful card nowadays, I feel. So in her more evolved form, which is the form that I say you should be pursuing, you get nice amounts of movement time, you have a skill boost, a VDP, 2-7 combos, 3-7 combos when you go for her Super Awakening. So that's a reasonable amount with a nice attack stat. But then she has a 3-color attribute damage bonus. So that's 2.5 times. So 8 times 2.5, I think that's 20 times personal damage, times the 2.5 for the VDP is 45 times personal damage with a VDP. That is a meaningful amount of personal damage with a large attack stat, and it's Fujin. So obviously they have a Fujin-style active skill. It also means they are able to potentially take the double damage cap latent, because when you think about it, that's a large amount of personal damage. And if you're playing something like Natsuro teams who have 7x6 and are probably making VDPs anyways, Beach Fujin is a blessing. The movement time is a blessing. The active skill is needed in most dungeons because it gives you 4 turns of damage absorb cancellation and 1 turn of haste. This is powerful if the dungeon needs multiple damage absorbs throughout, especially if they're spaced out. So one place that's going to need it for sure is the current Mystic Dimensions or Mysterious Dimensions dungeon. There is a chance you encounter Canna earlier on, so damage absorb is needed. And then Bluebird at the end is going to need damage absorb. And the longer your damage absorb, the easier time you're going to have in killing him. So with 4 turns of damage absorb, it's going to be meaningful. And I forgot to mention that Canna floor, right after, there's another floor that has 3 turns of color or damage absorb. So if you kill Canna in 1 turn, which you probably can, you have 3 turns to kill the subsequent floor with that damage absorb before they do the execute if you don't have a delay. So point of the matter is, I think she's actually quite a well-designed card for the current Mysterious Dimensions. Sure, at 3 it's a little less ideal because her base skill becomes kind of dead weight overall, and it's a long cooldown, so it's going to be hard to charge back up again, I feel, overall. Maybe you could argue if you take the skill charge Super Awakening and use her on Rainbow, but then Rainbow, I've mentioned, is not so great. Point of the matter is, I think on mono blue teams, it's going to work out because, for the most part, you're probably going to have most colors covered. And with a 7x6 board for Natsuro teams, you're going to have a much easier time achieving that overall. You get the Team RCV, which is probably not going to be needed, but why not take it overall? So point of the matter is, I think she's quite a strong card, and it's a reasonably inexpensive trade to make. Like, there's going to be damage absorbed in most dungeons anyways nowadays, and for the fact that it costs less trade fodder compared to the 9-star cards. So if you don't have Beach Fujin, you have lots of trade fodder lying around, may not necessarily be a bad idea, especially if you play mono water teams and you want to take it possibly to the next level, because it is a valuable active skill overall, and it might help you playing through the new current Mysterious Dimensions. If we take a look at, I didn't look at Eschamali's weapon assist, but I'll jump there after Fujin. So we look at Fujin's weapon assist. You get to have the same beautiful active skill of 4 turn of damage absorb void. You get Team RCVs and tape. Tape is going to be needed, especially if you play 6x5 for the Mysterious Dimensions. It's the only time tape is truly needed, so it's not a bad thing overall, and it's a universally helpful weapon. It doesn't care what color you are because there's no orb enhancers or rows, so it's going to be useful for all given teams, and who doesn't like to heal more? So a useful weapon assist overall. For her other weapon, you get a Cross Awakening, which is still quite a rare awakening, so you can clear those sticky binds with easier ease. You also have Team HP and Team RCV. You also get 2 turns of Damage Absorb Void and 2 turns of Void Damage Void. So this is quite a meaningful weapon assist overall, because there are going to be dungeons where you're going to play through where these mechanics will overlap with each other and be meaningful, or you're playing a team that just doesn't have enough oomph for VDP damage to get through. It's just pretty well-rounded overall. I feel like Beach Fujin definitely got the big end of the stick overall for the 8-star cards. And then jumping back to Eschamali for her weapon assist, it's the same awkward active skill that doesn't address mechanics. You get the enhanced water combo skill bind resist. I don't think it's truly worthwhile. And then for her final weapon, you get a skill boost and 2 enhanced water orbs and Team RCV. So not bad overall. It's okay. For 99 turns, you get locked water orbs and 2 turn delay. It's okay. Maybe if the dungeon's riddled with spinners, you don't have a counter to spinners, it could be something meaningful, but I feel like it's probably just going to be her best form overall anyways, because at least it's a 2-turn delay, so it's not like it's going completely to waste. Gives you some passive damage, maybe, but I feel like it's just not that great. Beach Fujin is definitely the winner here overall, and even having multiple copies may not be bad, because the weapon assists are quite nice overall. And now we come to the 7-star cards and Beach Thor. So Beach Thor is kind of an interesting card, but I feel like I dislike having mixed enhanced combos, because it's going to be rare that you're going to really be able to truly take advantage of the other color that you're going to be matching multiple combos of. So I think it's a little awkward. The Beyond that, they have super blind resist, they have 10 combo, 7 combo, large attack stat, they can have 4 skill boosts, so they can have a meaningful amount of personal damage and team damage overall. For their active skill, it's a 4-turn cooldown that creates 3 light and water orbs, so maybe that will help with triggering those takoyakis. And then, if you're above 50% health, you get 1 turn of void, damage void, so you ignore VDP requirements. It's a pretty interesting card overall. Like, if you're playing teams that want to match, say, like, Rose overall, maybe this could be something that is meaningful, because you match Rose, you probably do more damage compared to the VDP. Again, it depends on the team in question, but it's an interesting mechanic overall, and I do like that idea, because maybe it will create interesting potential in the future. For their leader skill, you're fixed at 9 seconds of orb movement time, and you get a large amount of health multiplier along with a modest amount of damage reduction, and you just have to match water and light orbs. So the problem is you can't system with their active skill because it's a 4-turn cooldown, so you might be in danger. But at the same time, it's not as dangerous because you do have 6.25 times health, so even if you don't match water light for a turn, there's a good chance you are going to survive. Obviously, you need a healing solution because due to the 1 times RCV, and they do have 12 million auto follow attacks, so it's not like it's a bad leader, but it's just okay in this day and age, I feel, overall. And then finally, we come to Beach Den Bola in terms of like new cards or like higher rarity cards, and they have potentially 4 skill boosts or 777 with a VDP or quad 7 combo depending on the team composition, and they can have super blind resist, which is nice. They are an orb skin card, so you can purchase them directly if it's interesting. But their active skill is kind of weird. They are 2-turn cooldowns, so technically systemable of 2 of them. And they create an RCV buff, which is nice, unlock the board, and create 2 fire, water, heal, and jammer orbs. It's quite similar to the buffed Sena from Mystic's Inspectors in the sense that they unlock the board, but you don't give yourself guaranteed activation with those 2 jammer orbs. You can't clear them on the same turn you make them. You may not have enough fire or water or hearts depending on how bad the board was to start, so it's kind of a weird active skill overall. And even her leader skill doesn't even care about jammers being matched. So those jammers are just kind of dead weight. So it forces you to really want to have probably a system of Den Bolas to actually be able to match them on a regular basis. I can see you matching, like using Den Bola turn 1, create the 2 jammers. Turn 2, use another Den Bola, 4 jammers, match 3 of the jammers. And then turn 3, you make 2 more, and then maybe you can clear them. I don't know. Maybe you can find a way to do it. Maybe, maybe not. For their leader skill, you need to be a machine type. So that's an incredibly restricted subpool. But you have great multipliers overall because all you need to do is match fire, water, and you get bonus combos, and you have thick health and large amounts of damage reduction. So it's not like it's a bad leader, but it's going to be a restrictive team building overall. And as a sub, I feel like the jammer generation is going to be awkward unless you have a way to actually take advantage of it. But then Sena teams probably don't need to run them because Senas are their own system, and that works well enough, and they give the board unlock anyways with more zest and guaranteed 3 fire, water, and hearts. So I just feel like she's a bit of an awkward card overall. It doesn't really fit anywhere at this point in time. I forgot to look at their weapon assist again. Gosh darn. So look at Thor's weapon assist. It gives you the enhanced light combo L and then the same active skill that's kind of unusual. For Den Bola, they have 2 weapon assists. Their first weapon assist is a skill boost and lots of 3 enhanced fire and 3 enhanced water orbs. So, again, if you're playing a team with those 2 colors, it could be meaningful. The active skill is awkward again, so maybe you would put that on top of your, like, say, transforming cards. And, like, say, Sena, for instance, you get the skill boost, lots of great enhanced orbs. It can be meaningful there potentially. And then for their final weapon assist, you get attack while above 80%, so 1.5 times personal damage for the owning card, and then 3 fire rows. The active skill is changed to create the top row and the second row from the top to fire, so potentially 12 orbs on a 6x5, so that's great. Guaranteed VDP right there. And you get 1 turn of void, damage, void. So you don't have to make that VDP. You can make just 2 separate rows. So row-based fire teams can definitely celebrate that. Or just even giving it to a card to give them a bit more damage output in rows if you have spare awakening slots. I feel like it's just kind of a situational weapon overall, and that kind of just sums up most of the Beach collab. Like, they have some value potentially, but it's quite situational. I feel like Beach Fujin is definitely one of the better cards at this point in time. Like, it does fit quite well for the current endgame content dungeons, so that's something to keep in mind. But for the most part, I don't think it's a good event to roll in. Like, the cards are reasonable. Obviously, they're strong at the top rarity, but you have to remember, the chances of you rolling those wonderfully strong high rarity cards are quite low. Regardless of all that, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below. And did you end up rolling? And if you did roll, was it a fruitful venture? Either way, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.